My name is Well Dressed Gem, and I know I've been missing from my subscribers. A lot of personal problems got in the way of video making, but this is a topic I do want to talk about. A topic that I at least want to make a video about. As you read from the title of the video, I love the Persona series. Albeit I've only really played 2 of the main games in the series, but when I played Persona 5, it helped me recover against one of my bigger enemies in life, depression. In this video, I'll be discussing some major topics along with spoiling a good chunk of the game, so if you do not feel comfortable with the topics that I list on screen, or don't want me to spoil a good chunk of vanilla Persona 5, I understand. In fact, this is like your last warning, essentially, at this point. If you're just not a fan of hearing about stuff like that or don't want Persona 5 spoiled, I'd say just turn off this video for now. Play the game, and you'll be able to at least understand why I like this game so much. And a lot of it is just through just playing through the game, experiencing it without knowing what's possibly going to happen. But the major topic I want to say is that I love Persona 5, and a video game was what helped me get back on my feet. So 2 years ago, at the time of this recording, I was not in the best state of mind. I was constantly fighting off this mood swings, huge depression. I didn't have a job. I constantly had to rely on friends spotting me just to make me feel happy. They kept saying that I never had to pay them back, but at the same time it kind of chipped away at my self-worth at points. This happened for about a year or so, and whenever I got that money, essentially, whatever I could scrounge up, I would go to a liquor store down the street from where I live, and I would just get drunk by myself. I generally didn't know when to stop. I had a really big binge drinking problem, and to be quite honest, it was some of the few times that I felt happy, and it all came to a head at around March of 2018. Halfway through March, I drank way more than I normally drank, to the point I could barely go down the stairs. I remember streaming something, and the next thing I remember, I was puking in the toilet on the downstairs bathroom in an attempt not to wake anyone else up, but my family tried asking if I was okay, and I kind of just started barking that I needed help, essentially. That I just started screaming my demons at 2 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, it was rough, and they ended up bringing me to a hospital, to what was essentially a suicide attempt, and I remember while sobering up in the back of the car, just texting a couple people that I couldn't make it to events that we planned. I couldn't make it to run a club that I was president of in college, and I remember telling them though that I was getting help. That's the biggest thing I was trying to say, is that I was getting help, and that's what matters. And I remember that they said that they were happy for me, and they said that they'll be waiting once this is all through. From there, I was then diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, and to say the very least, this was the first step of my rehabilitation. At this point, my friends and I were trying to think of things I could do to change up my life. I remember hearing so much about Persona 5, and there was so much positive press when it came to Persona. When you're president of a nerd club, you hear a lot about certain series. You kind of hear a lot about, the Dragon Ball Zs, Naruto's, Bleach, all those animes. Those are things I heard often, but if I could pinpoint what was the 3rd most discussed game series, it was probably Persona. I mean, from the very little what I played of it, I enjoyed playing Persona 4 Arena, and I was looking forward to BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, so it kind of lined up. Even though those Persona 5 characters weren't going to be playable, I at least wanted to see what the hype was about, and plus, I felt like I kind of needed to break the mold, and I played way too many fighting games, so I had to take a break from this constant grind. So I'll start with Persona 5 is what I said to myself. I asked around from some friend groups if they had a copy of Persona 5 that I was able to either buy or borrow from them. And I remember my friend I mentioned it, and he said, "Yeah, I'll be able to loan you out a copy. Just be careful; it's the steelbook version." And I think that's how it began. The first thing I did, I remember, was just sit down, let all the logos rock, and watch the intro movie. Because I remember really liking it when RPGs had cinematic intros. The first one I could think of off the top of my head was Suikoden 3's. Just hearing whatever language they were speaking. I think they were speaking Latin. I remember the rhythm or the melody to this day though, but it was actually kind of cool. I remember that still I could still see that first shot of the horse riding through the mist so vividly. So I was kind of hoping that Persona 5 had that cinematic intro, and hearing that riff of "Wake up, get out there" just playing, I knew one thing at least. I love this game's aesthetic because, I don't know, red and black. I guess I still live in my edgy teenager years. That's just my aesthetic, and I knew I was gonna love this acid jazz sort of music. I was never really able to match the music of the game. I do remember hearing some songs, but there's just things I don't even remember hearing Last Surprise prior to playing the game. I remember hearing Rivers in the Desert because someone requested to put it on when I was working at a comic book store, but I digress. The fact that may surprise you actually is that I remember not liking Persona 5 at first actually. The math tutorial I had to do was a bit much for me, but at the same time, me trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate, I remember trying to play it before my friends came over for a WrestleMania viewing party. It did turn me off to a degree, but the moment I got back into it, I could barely put it down. I only really put it down for school, sleep, and eating. 5 out of 7 days I played it for a ridiculous amount of time. The other two days, I grinded fighting games with friends. But I still started my day off with eating and playing Persona 5. But after getting past that long intro and the tutorial, when I had to explore Kamoshida's palace, I was disgusted to say the very least, just seeing all these students being abused. When I managed to complete that palace, I felt like I was able to do something about things that felt impossible. Something that seemed unwinnable for me, and continuing to do that for the different palaces, different problems, and different bad people to take down. Mob boss, an artist stealing his art, a corrupt politician, characters like that. Of course, there's also Futaba, which I'll mention later on, but for me, it boiled down to this. No matter how big the problem is, whether it be from a corrupt gym teacher, a mob boss, you can take it down just as long as you don't give up. The answer will appear eventually. And that was the first thing that it taught me, and it even goes into what the characters had to face. The characters enjoyed them, I related to them too. They all just had one trait that, while minuscule to some, I just felt the correct bond, and I was able to connect them to people I knew, or even to myself, and from there I was able to at least relate to them. Each of their problems, I wanted to see them all charge their problems head on, and I wanted to see them win. Along with this, how each character asked for Joker for support, it created, for me, a sense of togetherness and some camaraderie that I wanted to have with the people that supported me, and from there I was able to feel a connection with the people I interacted with. A social link of my own, but when it came to helping out a fellow Phantom Thief, it's just a simple story of someone overcoming an obstacle. But to me, it felt more like that. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like the characters are all trying to run from this perceived idea from what their peers were, and even some of their teachers were putting onto them. It's sort of like a persona. Hey, I got that. But in all seriousness, seeing them all break past their problems, their masks as the game states, it was like a little kid watching a Saturday morning cartoon, watching their hero be the villain of the week. Like, just watching them conquer something simple like a rival model, figuring out, why is this delinquent skipping school, to just, I don't know, like it just escapes from me at this point. But I mentioned about a character named Futaba, but let me explain my thoughts on my favorite palace that I went through. That's Futaba's. So, after taking down Kaneshiro, this disgusting bug, the plot made me think that we were going to go to something that was going to be something even worse. Instead, the game gave me a curveball and proceeded to give me something so grounded, and for me, something that really called me out. Futaba's Palace. I remember it was like a part of growing up and realizing that simple things like, while a parent's strict mentality might lead to a child resenting them, there are points where you realize that they are doing it for your protection. They are doing it to teach you something. And it helped me mature and understand what it looks like from the other side of the parent-child relationship. And at the end, Futaba accepting her shadow and her flaws, I think that's how they do it in Persona 4. It let me realize that, one of my biggest flaws that I'm guilty, and I'm still guilty of doing this to this day, is that I remember my past and I kind of let it dictate me. I felt the same with Futaba, at least. And just seeing her get past her depression, her PTSD, her fear of walking out the door of her own room. It distilled onto me if I could do it, if she could do it, why can't I do it? And it got me to think, at least, that I feel like those mistakes, it taught me, those mistakes, those bad days, bad actions, they're what taught me to be a decent human being to this day. Just gonna skipping over the next couple of palaces. I wanted to talk about Shido's palace. While being one of the more frustrating palaces because of that whole mouse mechanic, some of the backstory, Joker was falsely accused of assault, and that's the reason why he was in Shujin Academy. And at this point, he was able to get some retribution. He wanted Shido to admit to his crimes, admit to what he's done, and watching, Shido feel challenged by the Phantom Thieves, and that boss fight. I remember, that when that boss fight played, just hearing that just the instrumental, that synth bass, was oh man, this is gonna be something. And Rivers in the Desert, just one of the most emotional themes I've ever heard, and that's without the vocals of the first phase. You still feel that emotion, feel that emotion, just like the instrumental. You feel the emotion, and then you take down the first phase, you take down that monster he's fighting on. After more conversation, you feel the build-up, and you reveal to Shido who you are. And this guy, he tries to take you down with just his fists, and now you know that it's personal. And at that moment, the vocals come in, and these lyrics just talking about creating hope, like a river in a dry land, an ace in a bad hand, just being hope in a hopeless situation. Just hearing Lin's vocals combined with Shinji Meguro's inspiring composition of such an inspiring song, it's I can't listen to that song without tearing up a little bit. I want to say it's the violins at the very least, with just Lin, excellent vocalist. Glad that she was able to do the entire soundtrack for the game, and beating him was ever so sweet. And like just got that retribution, and for me, I felt like, you know, and from there, like I kind of like projected my like depression into Shido, you know, constantly like saying that he's unbeatable, he's this, he's that, and I was able to just take it down, you know, with like someone singing, you know, that we need to be hope, we need to be, you know, this, we need to be hopeful, even when things don't seem to be going our way. I think you're probably wondering if there's anything I don't like about this game. And, well, yeah. Yeah, I can actually, there are some things I don't like, specifically the, well, I mentioned the tutorials in the beginning, and the final bosses, like, the beginning kind of hits you like a truck, and I will admit that, but, like, the tutorials kind of, like, it's hard to get into, but, like, the moment you get past those tutorials, it just shoots you right out of a cannon. But with, like, the final bosses, like, it was, like, the Veil of Life, and, Yaldabaoth, it was like, I personally think they're not that memorable, to be quite honest. Like, I personally think the game should have ended at Shido's palace. Like, the Veil, I don't really understand what it was. To me, it wasn't really that memorable. And like with Shido, there's a emotional connection to the main character. And I guess they're trying to get rid of all the evil in the world, to make it more complete, but I don't know. Ending it at a personal fight with Shido, for me, it's a good cutoff point at that point, you know? Like, a good chunk of, like, the Phantom Thieves' problems stemmed from Shido. But at the end of the game, once I completed both of those, like, the complete bosses, at the end of the game, however, I remember feeling satisfied. In fact, I remember, like, pantomiming a finger gun and acting out Sinful Shell with Joker. And at that point, when I said my goodbyes to the Phantom Thieves and hearing that ending song, it felt like a bunch of good friends were moving away. Like, my tears rolled down my face. And my adventure was over, but now I had found a new inspiration to push myself, to at least make myself feel better. I held on to the fact that Joker started from nothing and made something out of it. The world gave him so much to fight, and so much that could have mentally crippled him, but he didn't give up. No matter what, he just didn't give up. No matter how big that problem was, he took it down, and he didn't give up. And as I completed the game, I found the people who supported me throughout my depressive episodes. Phantom Thieves to each other was more than a bunch of rebellious teens that wanted to take down a bunch of rotten adults. They were a group of friends that supported each other, and that's what I needed, really, too. A support system, with those two big things that might seem minuscule to others. Hell, reading over the script, I feel like an English teacher with how much BS connections I'm bringing out of this, but to me, it gave me something. It just gave me the building block of pushing myself to be happier. And immediately playing Persona 5, a friend loaned me their Vita, and I played through Persona 4 Golden. And just how they get their personas, how they beat their shadows, I learned to accept more of my flaws, and that they make who I am. It built upon that building block Persona 5 gave me. And it helped me improve my self-worth. Sure, I still might have those moments where I feel worthless, but I just remember what the series has given me. I love the Persona series, despite the fact that I've only played 2 games in the series. Sure, it's not perfect, but believe me when I say, play Persona 5, play Persona 4, play a Persona game. They're all beautiful. And with Persona 5 Royal coming out, it's going to be a fresh, complete game that both newcomers and fans like myself will enjoy. With that said, thanks for listening to me gush about Persona for like a really long time. Thanks for being patient with the video creation, and thank you just for listening and watching. And I'll catch you guys later, okay?